Welcome back to the Sherwood Urban Farm. In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can build a vegetable garden in a day. Of course, you're going to have all your materials ready, but I'm going to show you how you're going to do in-ground beds and these beautiful tall raised beds. Let's dive into it. So the vegetable garden that I want to show you how to build today is a no-dig vegetable garden. Now, the benefits of no-dig vegetable gardening is that, number one, you don't have to dig. I mean, it's like quite self-explanatory, let's say. You will just be putting down compost once a year or twice a year, doesn't matter, it depends how often you are growing. And then you can just leave it, you just put your plants in. So it's much easier for a vegetable gardener that you don't have to be tilling your beds so often, right? The other advantage is the benefits for the environment and the benefits for the soil life. So there is microorganisms that live in the soil. This is quite a new kind of science that they have. It's only about 20 years old, so there's still a lot to learn. But what I've recently learned about it is that the diversity of the soil bacteria and the microorganisms in the soil is the same as what we have in our gut. Unfortunately, globally, they are finding that as the diversity of microorganisms are going down in the soil, it's also happening within us. We need microorganisms for healthy bodies and healthy minds, and we need to get it from the food that we eat. The animals get it from the food that they eat. Us who are not vegans, we eat them, so we get it there, and we get it from our vegetables and from our fruit. That is why no-dig vegetable gardening is so important, because you're not disturbing the structure of the soil and those microorganisms. And if you turn it into the sun will sterilize and kill off all the beneficial microorganisms in the soil. What I've also learned is that there's a thing called a rhizosphere. So I thought a rhizosphere is like the whole sort of 30 centimeters of the layer of the earth. Not at all. It's actually only 3 millimeters, mostly around the tip of the roots of your plants. So in that little area, that is where the plant communicates with microorganisms like bacteria and protozoa and I don't know what else, and fungi. What happens then is, if the plant is an acid-loving plant and it realizes or senses or whatever that the soil around it has got a very high pH, it will release hydrogen ions and be able, in that little rhizosphere, be able to drop the pH by 2 units. So if you're measuring your soil's pH, then you might have like a 7 or a 7.5, but in that tiny little area around the tips of the roots, it will be a 5.5, which is almost ideal for plants to uptake nutrients. The other thing that the rhizosphere does is that it will send out, in that area, the plant will send out chemical signals, and it will be able to attract the organisms that it wants. So let's say it wants certain kinds of bacteria, then it will attract those. They have a symbiotic relationship. So the plant has got leaves, so it's got chlorophyll, so it can make carbohydrates, and then it will give that to these bacteria. Then when the bad bacteria comes along, the good bacteria is also carnivorous, and so it will eat the bad bacteria. And it is just incredible what is happening in the soil. But if you are disturbing the soil all the time, then you're messing up that structure. The last thing that I found about the soil structure and what's going on is with the fungi. So the plant has its roots, right? But the roots are a certain size, and so it can't get in everywhere to be able to get nutrients and moisture. But fungi can. So they send out all their little filament things, and they will then plug into the plant's roots, and then they will also do an exchange. However, the plant doesn't necessarily do that. It will do that if it wants to do that. If it wants to have sort of an interconnection with the fungi, then it will send out certain chemicals, And then the advantage of that is it will have a smaller root system. So you think, oh, you want a nice big root system. But if it can rely on the fungi network, then it can actually stretch out all over the place to get nutrients, number one. And number two, it's not using its energy to make this big root system to be able to source all its own nutrients. It's relying on the fungi, so it can use that energy into leaf and fruit production. The benefits of no-dig gardening actually extend to your dinner plate. So if you want healthy vegetables, you need them growing in healthy soil. Vegetables grown in healthy soil give you higher nutrients and are much higher in antioxidants, and they're just so much more nutrient dense. You also want to eat your harvest as soon as you possibly can, because the longer they're in your fridge, the less nutrients they have. Now hopefully I've convinced you to start a no-dig vegetable garden. Let's get our hands dirty by building the in-ground beds first. Select an area relatively close to your kitchen. It should be level and receive at least 4 hours of direct sunlight, preferably in the morning with a late afternoon shade, especially in those long hot summers. Begin by laying down a thick layer of cardboard or newspaper to suppress weeds. Make sure to overlap the edges to prevent any gaps. You can lay down your cardboard over the entire area, because ideally you want to put between the beds wood chips, which will also add to the nutrient value of the soil, feeding the soil as it breaks down. It keeps the paths nice and clean, so your shoes and boots and whatever don't get full of dirt and mud and what. And then over time, as it's breaking down, the roots don't know that there's an edging to the bed. They are going to go into the path, so they will still be feeding the plants. That's why it is ideal to have wood chips down in your paths of your beds. Next, add a layer of compost. Your layer of compost is going to need to be at least 20 centimeters thick. Then eventually the cardboard underneath is also going to decompose. But your plant's roots will be able to go through that compost as it's wet and so on, and starts to decompose, and then start to root straight into the native soil. Finally, plant your seeds or seedlings directly into that layer of compost. Water them well, and nature will take care of the rest. You do need to, however, come in and check on your plants regularly. They say that farmers' footprints are the best fertilizer, which means that you should be out there checking on your plants, making sure that the soil is moist enough, aphids haven't started infestation on your brassicas, or just keeping your eye on things, because you can't just put them in the ground and walk away and expect to harvest after a few weeks. And it is anyway such a joy to be able to go into your garden in the evening after work, or in the early mornings or over weekends, and just see the fruits of your labor. Alright, now let's move on to the tall raised beds, which are perfect for those with mobility issues or to save your back from bending over for long periods of time. I've made a full video on how I built these beds, but I'll briefly explain what I did and which materials I used. These sheets are 890mm wide alu-zinc roof sheets cut in half down the length. I screwed the sheets to lengths of 38 by 38mm brandering using drywall screws. I then lined the bottom with construction plastic because I wanted to prevent the lemon tree's roots from growing up into the beds. However, if you don't have this problem, you can just use cardboard on the grass at the bottom. I then filled the beds with native soil to prevent the soil from dropping over time. You can, however, fill the beds with logs and other organic matter, but do expect the level to drop considerably once that decomposes. Your final layer should be about a 20 centimeter layer of well-rotted compost. And you can plant your vegetable seedlings straight into this layer of compost. Maintenance is simple. Add a 2 to 5 centimeter layer of compost with each change of season to feed the soil life, and water your garden as needed. Mulching with straw or leaves helps to retain moisture and suppress weeds. Mulching also protects the soil from erosion and extreme temperatures, promoting a stable growing environment. And as it decomposes, the leaves or straw, whatever it is you're using, then it's also feeding your soil life. After a few weeks, you'll start to see the fruits of your labor. Harvest your vegetables regularly to encourage continuous growth. Enjoy the fresh, nutrient-dense produce straight from your garden. The sooner you can eat it after harvesting, the better. And if you can't eat it immediately, then you can blanch it and freeze it or preserve it in some other method. It's a rewarding experience that benefits both your health and the environment. Thank you for watching my video all the way to the end, and I hope it has inspired you to go out into your garden and build a vegetable garden in a day, whether you're doing the in-ground beds or if you're doing the tall raised beds. If you like this video, then please like and subscribe and share with your friends. Don't forget the notification bell so that you'll know whenever I'm uploading a new video. Then I hope you have a wonderful day further, and I'll see you in the next video.